After two separate reports from both the New York Times and the Washington Post, it's now known who paid for research that resulted in the now infamous Russia dossier on President Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign and the Democratic National Committee. On Tuesday, October 24, the Times reported that a spokesperson for a law firm said it had hired researchers on behalf of the Clinton campaign and the DNC, essentially confirming that the 35-page report containing Russia info on Trump was paid for by Democrats. The Washington Post first to report that the Clinton campaign and the DNC funded the research. On Tuesday night, less than an hour after the Post published its story, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders shared the article on Twitter, calling the Clinton and DNC funding the real Russia scandal. Sanders wrote, "The real Russia scandal. Clinton campaign paid for the fake Russia dossier, then lied about it, covered it up." The following morning, President Donald Trump tweeted about the news while quoting an apparent view from a Fox News show on the matter. Trump tweeted, "Clinton campaign DNC paid for research that led to the anti-Trump fake news dossier. The victim here is the president." At Fox News, Clinton campaign DNC paid for research that led to the anti-Trump fake news dossier. The victim here is the president. At Fox News, Donald J. Trump at Real Donald Trump, October 25, 2017. Sanders and Trump's hailing of the reports on Clinton and the DNC come despite their history of repeatedly denying the credibility of both the New York Times and the Washington Post. Trump has called both papers failing and fake news. Meanwhile, hours before the Post published its latest reporting on the dossier, Sanders told reporters, "As I've said many times before, I wouldn't use the Washington Post as my source." Sanders would, of course, later go on to use the Washington Post as her source when she tweeted a link to the paper's reporting. "So they caught fake news," CNN told. "But what about NBC, CBS, ABC? What about the failing it and White Times at Washington Post? They are all fake news." Donald J. Trump at Real Donald Trump, June 27, 2017. After the press secretary was called out on the contradictory, discrediting then sharing of the Post, she responded with a link to a scene from Dumb and Dumber. Saya Bengkong on YouTube. What was in the Trump-Russia dossier? The Trump dossier is a 35-page report, compiled by a former British intelligence officer, Christopher Steele, that contained several allegations about ties between Donald Trump and the Russian government, including one very salacious claim. The dossier asserted that Russian President Vladimir Putin has been cultivating, supporting and assisting Trump for at least 5 years. When the existence of the dossier was first reported back in January, the story prompted scrutiny over whether Trump had used the aid of Russian government to help the progress of his presidential campaign. Saul Lobaf-BGT image. The former spokesman for Clinton's campaign, Brian Fallon, told the Washington Post that he didn't know the research was funded by the campaign, but also told the paper that it was not surprising. "The first I learned of Christopher Steele or saw any dossier was after the election. But if I had gotten handed it last fall, I would have had no problem passing it along and urging reporters to look into it. Opposition research happens on every campaign, and here you had probably the most shadowy guy ever running for president, and the FBI certainly has seen fit to look into it. I probably would have volunteered to go to Europe myself to try and verify if it would have helped get more of this out there before the election." Funding opposition research is, in fact, a common practice. One sign that's indicative of how common it is the fact that the research that resulted in the Trump dossier was first funded by a Republican opponent of Trump's during the GOP primaries, the Post reports. "Every campaign I ever worked for paid individuals or firms to do oppo research. I don't get why this would be surprising." https://t.coi4w4s9 Rauro, Stuart Stevens at Stuart Stevens, October 25, 2017. "Okay, people, let's cut the shit. Trump dossier was commissioned by the team of a Republican candidate, not hard to guess which one either." Michael Weiss at Michael Weiss, October 25, 2017. "The identity of that Republican hasn't been confirmed in any reporting. The identity of the Democrats who paid for the research, however, has been revealed. Both the Clinton campaign and the DNC helped fund research that resulted in the Trump dossier.